I love this topic because if the listeners will know, I talk about this all the time. You're talking about election year economic issues. Let's talk about that. Tell me the impact of the election year on economic issues.
This is Las Vegas Real Estate Now with local real estate expert Harvey Blankfeld.
Now, it's interesting. After the buzz of the election wears off, usually it's back to normal. So what you find is 6 months before an election, and I mean presidential and congressional, but it's usually the presidential that creates the most buzz. So every 2 years, there's a little bit of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Well, especially this year. But what you find is the 6 months leading up to the election and the 2 months after get bumpy, but then reality sets in and the
life goes on.
Yeah, the acknowledgement that things don't move as quickly. And I'll address this when you're ready. But, all these proposals that come out, people freak out, but then they forget, well, you have to pass the legislation.
Right.
And in this day and age, that's very difficult to do.
Clearly, with the dissension that's going on, both on a federal and state level, I mean, you've got one side not wanting the other side to have any success, so they stand in their way, and so very little gets done, unfortunately.
Right. There's a big leap between a TV commercial with a particular policy, a policy proposal, and then the actual legislation. It's miles apart.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, where I've always had this thought, this feeling that in an election, like you said, presidential elections in particular, where people kind of step aside and wait to see what happens. Not that it's impactful, but they would just wait anyway.
Right.
And then once it happens, once the dust settles, then they get back into doing the regular life things, and particularly big decisions like real estate and financial matters.
Yeah, and you really can't argue with the prospect or your client, right?
Yeah.
If they say, hey, I'm going to wait until after the election. There's no comeback to that.
No, I know.
You just have to say, okay, I'll call you on November 5th.
A quick story. I was just on Channel 8 this past week, and one of the associate producers came up to me and said, Harv, I need you to talk to my mom because she wants to wait until after the election because she believes her candidate's going to fix everything. Right. It's going to be fixed. Right. And interest rates are going to come down, and it's going to be magical and amazing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Because that's not how this works.
No, and if your candidate was going to fix everything, if they were perfect, he or she would get 100% of the vote.
Indeed.
And that doesn't happen.
No. Not going to happen.
Right.
No way. Okay, so there is lots of so candidates have a way of framing things in a positive light for themselves and also a negative light for their opponent. And so that gets us all shaken up, basically, is what happens here. And things become volatile.
That's right. And probably more in my universe than yours, where the stock market, the bond market can really move second by second. Right. So something comes up, markets in today, and we could hit on this, the Federal Reserve just had a meeting. Right. So during the Fed chief's comments, the market took off because of the possibility that they may cut interest rates in September.
That's what,
I have a lot to say about that, and I'm sure you'll ask me.
Yeah.
But the market tries to what's called front run the eventual policy.
Right.
And sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. So a day like today where there's a 2% increase, tomorrow it could drop 2%. Once people go to sleep, think about it, and reflect on the actual verbiage of the statement, then they'll say, wait a minute, if they're cutting interest rates, the economy may not be as good as we think it is, and then things will sell off. So 30 years in this business, just when I think I've seen it all, the next thing happens, but the pattern is doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, history keeps repeating itself.
It really does. It's fascinating.
I talk. We have a lender, John Ingram, comes on. And he talks about how the Fed. Years and years we talked about the Fed rate does not affect mortgage rates. It does not affect mortgage rate. Well, it kind of does. I mean, the eventuality. It's not specifically to them, but it does eventually affect them. And we've been talking about the Fed reducing, the interest rate for the last year or so. We've heard threats and rumors and all that stuff, but he made the same comment. All of the people who are trying to guesstimate what's happening said, hey, they're probably not going to do it in July, but they'll likely do something in September. And he said the same thing you did about mortgage lenders. They anticipate that. They're not waiting for it to happen.
Right. Well, if you look at the mortgage rates, as your associate will probably tell you, the market has priced in a cut already.
Yeah.
The danger is if they don't cut, and then the rates will shoot back up and the stock market shoots back down. Yeah. So I've learned that there's always somebody who knows more than me.
Right.
And the market usually is the best overall judge of what's going on. And when you see the 10-year Treasury note go from 4.5 to 4.15, that's 35 basis point. There's your interest rate cut. It's already happened.
Okay.
Now the market just has to adjust to that.
Interesting.
And it gives the Fed cover, right?
Right.
The Fed's going to say, well, we may as well cut. The market did it for us already.
There you go.
So the market's got, well, it's good and bad. When Jerome Powell became the chair, he said, I want to be more transparent in what we're doing.
Okay.
Which your industry, my industry,
trying
loves to
that.
hear.
Yep,
But
yep.
the problem is the more transparent they are, the more the market will front run them. So you have less surprises.
That's right.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah. And like you said, it's good if you get it right.
Right.
And it's really bad if you don't get it right. You went the
Absolutely.
wrong way.
That's exactly right.
Okay, I know just enough about economics to be dangerous, so I appreciate the insight. Okay, so when we look at election year prospects, and historically, a change of the executive office, the impact on real estate has been indistinguishable. There is no change. It really isn't.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, but I can see that in anticipation of things that when people look for their candidate to go over the other candidate, they're looking at the effect on the stock market. And the stock market has a favorite, and they like one over the other for whatever reason.